I never thought buying a few things for myself would spark a war in my marriage, but here we are. My husband David and I have been married for 5 years. We both work full-time and contribute to our shared savings account. The idea was always that we'd save for the future house upgrades, vacations, maybe kids one day. But lately, the future feels like it only applies when I'm the one spending money. Last month, after working overtime for weeks, I finally splurged on something I've wanted for a long time, a new camera and some accessories for a photography course. I've been talking about taking this class for years. The total? Around $1,200, which I paid out of our joint savings. To me, it felt like an investment in myself, in a passion I've been neglecting. When David found out, he acted like I had drained the account dry. He sat me down at the kitchen table with this stern, disappointed look on his face. "You didn't even ask me," he said. "That's financial infidelity. You broke my trust." The word infidelity hit me like a slap. I blinked at him, stunned. "David, I spent $1,200. Do you know how much your golf membership costs every year? $5,000 minimum, and that doesn't even include equipment, tournaments, and all the weekends you spend at the course." He waved it off. "Golf is different. It's networking. It helps my career." I laughed bitterly. "Networking? Come on. You don't even talk about work when you're out there. You're drinking beer and driving carts around with your buddies." That's when the double standard hit me. He gets to indulge in his luxury hobby, guilt-free, because it's important. But the moment I invest in something meaningful to me, it's suddenly betrayal. The fight spiraled. He accused me of being secretive, irresponsible, and selfish. I threw back that he was controlling, hypocritical, and blind to his own spending habits. At one point, he even suggested that from now on, we should both have to approve every purchase from savings. That might sound fair in theory, but I couldn't help thinking, why does the approval only matter when it's about me? He's never once asked my permission before paying his yearly golf dues. He's never called it financial infidelity when he came home with a new $800 driver, or spent an entire Saturday at the course instead of helping around the house. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The word kept echoing in my head, infidelity. Like I had committed some betrayal by choosing myself for once. Was I wrong? Or was David projecting his own guilt, dressing it up as concern for our marriage? One thing became clear. This fight wasn't really about money. It was about respect. I wasn't sure if David respected me, or just the role I played in keeping our life running while he enjoyed his luxuries. The next morning, things were icy between us. David barely spoke, just grunted a goodbye before leaving for work.
Yes.
I spent the day alternating between guilt and anger, replaying his words over and over. Financial infidelity. He'd said it like I was sneaking around with someone behind his back. When in reality I bought a camera and paid for a course I've been dreaming about for years. By evening, I thought we might calm down and talk it through. Instead, David came home with reinforcements. His mother. I didn't even get a warning text. The two of them walked in like I was on trial. "David tells me you've been spending irresponsibly," she said, settling into my kitchen chair like a judge taking her bench. "Marriage is about partnership, dear. Secrets destroy that." I nearly choked. Secrets? I bought a camera. That's hardly a secret. David crossed his arms. It's not about the camera. It's about using our savings without asking me first. I snapped. Then why don't you ask me before paying for your golf trips? Why is it only a problem when I do it? His mom frowned as if I'd crossed a line. Golf is part of David's career. It's not just fun, it's useful. Photography is just a hobby. That word just. It cut deep. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood my ground. It's a passion. And maybe I don't bring in business connections with it, but it gives me joy. And that should matter too. The tension got so bad I ended up storming out, driving to Jenna's place. She's my best friend, and has known David almost as long as I have. After I unloaded everything, she raised her eyebrows. He really called it financial infidelity. That's manipulative, girl. He spends more on golf in 2 months than you did on that camera. Just doesn't like the tables being turned. Her words settled in my chest like validation I desperately needed. She was right. I wasn't being reckless. I wasn't sneaking around. I was finally prioritizing myself. The following day, my sister called. Apparently David had vented to my family too, painting me as irresponsible with money. He made it sound like you drained the account, she said cautiously. But when I asked how much, and you said $1,200, I almost laughed. That's nothing compared to his golf fees. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just upset about the money. He was trying to frame the narrative, making me look like the untrustworthy one, and it worked on some people. My mother even called, gently asking if I was under stress or acting impulsively. I wasn't impulsive. I was tired. I was tired of being treated like my needs were optional while his luxuries were necessities. That night, as David practiced his golf swing in the living room with an expensive new driver, I sat on the couch holding my camera. I realized this fight wasn't over dollars. It was over whose dreams were considered valid in this marriage. And suddenly, I wasn't sure mine ever would be. The next weekend, I decided I wasn't going to tiptoe around David anymore. If he wanted to call me irresponsible for buying a camera, then I was going to hold up a mirror to his spending habits. Saturday morning, he was lacing up his golf shoes when I asked casually, "How much was this tournament fee again?" He barely looked up. I raised an eyebrow. "$900? For one day? Networking?" he said automatically, as if the word were a magic shield. I smiled sweetly. "Funny. My photography class was 1/4 of that, and you called it infidelity. That got his attention." He slammed the shoehorn down. "Don't twist things. Golf benefits us long term. Your camera doesn't." Something in me snapped. "You know what, David? Maybe it doesn't bring in money, but it benefits me. Last I checked, I'm half of this marriage. My happiness should count as much as your tea time." For once, he didn't have a quick retort. He grabbed his bag and stormed out. The silence that followed was oddly liberating. I pulled out my new camera, went for a walk, and snapped photos of the park near our house. Each click felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, proof that I didn't need his permission to value what mattered to me. Later that day, I decided to push further. I went online and opened a new checking account just in my name. Nothing secretive. I transferred a portion of my paycheck, enough to cover my hobbies without touching the joint savings again. When David got home, I told him straight, "I'm done fighting over every dollar I spend. From now on, I'll keep part of my money separate. That way you can't accuse me of betrayal every time I choose myself." His face turned red. "So now you're hiding money?" "No," I said calmly, protecting myself. "Because right now, you treat my passions like they're worthless compared to yours. And I won't keep asking for permission to exist." He sputtered, trying to frame it as selfishness. But the more he argued, the clearer it became he wasn't upset about the money. He was upset about losing control. The following week, I stuck to my plan. Every time he swiped his card for golf-related expenses, I made a point to say nothing. But when I used my own account for a photography book, I saw him eyeing me with frustration. He wanted me to feel guilty, but it didn't land anymore. One night he muttered, "You're changing." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, David. I'm finally not apologizing for being myself." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument we'd had before. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes, not about money, but about me slipping out from under his thumb. The more I pulled back, the harder David tried to reassert control. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the narrative. He wanted to be the sensible one, the responsible husband burdened with a reckless wife. I found out just how far he'd go when his best friend Mark stopped me at the grocery store. "Hey," he said carefully, "David told me you've been making some risky choices with money. Everything okay?" I stared at him, stunned. "Risky choices?" "I bought a camera." Mark looked embarrassed. That's not how David explained it. The humiliation burned hotter than the anger. David was dragging our private fight into the public eye, shaping me into the villain so he could play the martyr. When he came home that night, I confronted him. "You're telling people I'm reckless? Why?" He shrugged like it was nothing. "They should know what's going on. Besides, maybe they'll knock some sense into you." I could barely breathe. "So now I'm a community project. Something to be corrected?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a glossy brochure from his briefcase and dropped it on the table. "If you're going to waste money on hobbies, then I'm upgrading mine. Corporate membership. Unlimited course access. It'll cost more, but it's worth it." I picked up the brochure with shaking hands. The membership was nearly $10,000 a year. You call my camera financial infidelity, but this is fine, because it benefits us, he repeated like a mantra. That night, I sat on the couch while he scrolled through golf forums, bragging to strangers about his upcoming membership. I realized he didn't see our savings as ours. He saw them as his to dictate, his to enjoy, with me as the accountant who wasn't allowed to touch the vault. The next day, I called my sister and laid it all out, the accusations, the gossip, the golf membership. She didn't mince words. He's gaslighting you, plain and simple. He's rewriting reality so you look crazy for wanting the same freedom he already has. Hearing her say it so plainly cracked something open inside me. For weeks, I'd been questioning myself, wondering if I was overreacting. But now, I saw it clearly. I wasn't overreacting. I was underreacting to a man who thought control was the same as love. That evening, I sat across from David at the dinner table and told him calmly, "If you go through with that membership, I'll be filing for separate finances permanently. No more joint account, no more savings together. You can fund your networking empire on your own." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said, meeting his gaze. "And I'll do it because I'd rather be accused of financial infidelity than live in financial captivity." For the first time, David didn't have a comeback. He just sat there, silent, as if the ground beneath his feet had shifted and he didn't know how to stand on it anymore. The day after I laid down my ultimatum, the house felt different. A quiet tension hung in the air, like the calm before a storm. David barely spoke, and when he did, it was clipped, his words calculated, as if he was testing me. I went about my morning routine as usual, but something had shifted inside me. No more tiptoeing, no more trying to keep the peace at the expense of my own freedom. I checked my newly opened account and transferred another portion of my paycheck. Each deposit was a small act of defiance, but also a reclamation of my life. I could spend, save, and invest in myself, without fear of judgment or accusation. David noticed immediately. When he saw the transfer notification on his phone, he stormed into the living room, his face red. "Are you seriously moving money again?" I looked up calmly, holding my coffee. "Yes, and yes, I'm serious. I'm done asking for permission to live my life. You've spent more on golf in a month than I've spent on my photography in a year. Yet somehow, my choices are treasonous." He sputtered, searching for words. But I didn't give him a chance to speak. "This isn't about money. It's about respect, David. I'm not your child, and I'm not your employee. I'm your partner. And a partner deserves autonomy." For the next few days, things were tense but eerily quiet. David didn't lash out, didn't try to manipulate friends or family this time. I suspected he was calculating, waiting for me to back down. But I didn't. Each time he glanced at my camera, each time he grumbled about my new courses, I reminded myself, this is my life, my joy, and I will not apologize for it. I even started small projects I had shelved for years, printing my own photo books, joining local photography exhibitions, even selling a few pieces online. Every dollar I earned and spent independently felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been trapped under guilt for too long. Then came the test. David suggested a weekend golf trip with his friends and casually hinted that I should stay home and not overdo it with the camera spending. I smiled, packed my camera bag, and left him to his world. I attended a local photography workshop instead. When I returned home Sunday evening, I found him quietly sitting on the porch, holding a cup of coffee. He didn't say much at first. Finally, he sighed and said, "I guess. I didn't realize how serious you were about this, about your independence." I sat beside him, softening just a fraction. "I am serious. I love you, David, but I can't live in a marriage where my passions are punished. I'll share life with you, but not at the expense of who I am." He nodded slowly, a reluctant acknowledgement. I didn't expect an apology, not immediately, but it was the first sign he understood the shift. For the first time in months, I felt something light and heavy at the same time, liberation. I could still love my husband, still build a life with him, but on my terms, with boundaries and without guilt. And that, I realized, was worth more than any joint savings account could ever hold. By the time the next month rolled around, our house felt different. Not colder, not tense, but balanced. The power dynamics had shifted. David no longer questioned every expense, no longer tried to dictate what I could and couldn't spend. In turn, I no longer felt obligated to justify every purchase, every class, every personal project. The first Saturday morning after the shift, I woke early and grabbed my camera. The sunlight was perfect for shooting along the river trail, and for the first time, I didn't glance over my shoulder worrying about whether David would scold me for spending. I felt free, truly free. When I got home, David was still in the living room, polishing his golf clubs. He looked up, nodded. For a moment, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was comfortable. Mutual respect had replaced tension. I realized it was the first time in months we'd existed in the same space without conflict. Over the following weeks, our routine settled into this new pattern. David continued his golf trips. I continued my photography pursuits, and our joint account remained for bills and shared expenses. But my personal account became untouchable, my sanctuary. I no longer felt guilty for spending on what made me happy, and he no longer acted like every dollar I used was a betrayal. The subtle changes extended beyond money. Conversations became more honest. I spoke up when something frustrated me, and he listened instead of immediately defending himself. Boundaries had created space for empathy, and that space nurtured understanding instead of resentment. One evening, as we sat on the porch sipping wine, David finally admitted something I'd been waiting to hear. "I didn't get it at first," he said slowly, "how important it was for you to have your own financial freedom. I thought controlling spending was helping us. But I see it was just controlling you." I reached for his hand. "Thank you for saying that. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to respect me." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "I respect you. I want you to be happy, and I think we can make this work." And in that moment, I realized we had reached a fragile but powerful equilibrium. The fight over money wasn't just about bills or savings, it was about autonomy, respect, and the recognition that a marriage is strongest when both partners can pursue their passions freely. That night, I worked on a new photography project while David mapped out his golf season. We existed side by side, separate but connected, independent but married. I finally understood that love wasn't about complete control or blind obedience. It was about partnership. And sometimes, the hardest battles aren't fought in grand gestures, but in the quiet insistence of claiming your own life without guilt.